Today is going to be powerful, man. We're getting into emotional mastery. So, last time we talked a lot about the subconscious mind and our thoughts and how they get there to begin with. Today is all going to be about understanding, processing, and releasing emotions. So, first off, we're going to start with understanding how emotions are really just energy. And then we're going to get into processing and releasing them, how to release emotional blocks and reset your nervous system, reframing and long-term emotional strength, and then implementing emotional mastery into our daily life. So, understanding emotion. So when we break the word emotion down, think of it, emotion, energy in motion. So these are natural physiological responses that arise from thoughts, experiences, subconscious patterns, and being that they're energy in motion, they're meant to be moving through us, not get stuck. So emotions, they reveal deeper beliefs, unmet needs, or past wounds that need to be acknowledged and understood. So when emotions are processed and they're expressed, it restores balance within us. And it gives us mind-body coherence. It strengthens our relationships and it opens up the door to better focus and inner peace and putting us in that flow state, right? You know, when things are just going your way and stuff's clicking and you're being extremely efficient, you're getting real creative, all these good ideas, that's flow state. That means that your emotions are good, they're flowing through you. So ignoring or bottling up emotions, oh, that leads to tension. You could feel that physically. It leads to other physical issues in your body, digestive issues, right? Gut issues. It leads to all of the organs. Kidney issues can happen from suppressed emotions. But it creates this disconnection. It makes it harder to stay present. It makes it harder to be focused, and it makes it hard to be aligned with the best version of yourself. So why is emotional mastery so important? Why does it matter other than exactly what I just said? But emotions drive 90% of your behaviors and your decisions. So we all have big goals to be the best version of ourselves. But if you find yourself repeating a lot of the same behaviors and making a lot of the same poor decisions, it's because they're driven by emotions that you haven't processed, that you haven't felt, that you haven't worked through yet. Because you can't think your way out of emotions. You must process and integrate them. So, as I just touched on a little bit, when emotions are suppressed, they'll show up as anxiety, overthinking, emotional outbursts, depression, uh, digestive issues. People that have anxiety, they have a lot of IBS issues. For me, I had terrible reflux, acid reflux, and heartburn. I was going to get endoscopies all throughout my 20s, and they couldn't find anything on the endoscopy. And I had all kinds of scarring from ulcers. I was The reflux got so bad I was vomiting in the morning. It was just terrible. I had big giant flare-ups. My face would get totally red after one sip of alcohol. It's because my liver wasn't properly functioning. It wasn't breaking down alcohol properly. And this is at 26 years old. The reason being, though, that none of the doctors could find out was because I was suppressing emotions. And I was doing this my whole life. And at around 26 is when they finally decided to start showing up in my body. Maybe I'm sure they were showing up before then, but that's when I really started to notice them, right? The reflux was just getting so bad. Why? Because I was suppressing stress and anxiety. The issues with my liver, I was suppressing anger. Anger is connected to the liver. People that have kidney issues, that's connected to suppressed fear, right? You might notice that you throw your back out real easily. A lot of times you see this with moms but even people our age, men, they'll go to bend down to pick up a toy, they're cleaning up the room, and they throw their back out. They're like, oh, I just bent over, I threw my back out. Well, that's because they were suppressing so much stress and it was getting like a rubber band ready to snap. So as soon as you bent over to pick up that toy, the rubber band snapped. The stress just came to a head right there. So it was suppressed. So what the mind is concealing, the body is revealing. So this is why we have to work through these emotions. We can't continue to suppress them. This is what leads to a lot of disease as well. Cancer. The cancer is that's just built up negative, toxic, poisonous energy throughout people's whole entire life. They never gain the self-awareness. They never work through their thoughts and their emotions, and it's got to manifest somehow. So a lot of the times it ends up manifesting as disease. Suppressing emotions, it'll lead to a lot of self-sabotaging patterns. You'll want to avoid tough conversations. You'll procrastinate. You'll want to numb and escape with food or alcohol or weed, social media, Netflix. Your nervous system stores the emotions as energy. So ignoring them doesn't make it disappear. It doesn't make the emotions disappear. It just buries them deeper and deeper and makes them harder to release later on. Something that is very important when it comes to this work is realizing that you are not your emotions. Emotions are visitors. They're not permanent residents. So a lot of times you'll hear people say like, "Oh, I'm so pissed off this morning. My anxiety is through the roof. I have so much anxiety. I'm anxious. I'm worried. I'm really sad. Something sad happened." You need to shift from I am to I feel, right? I don't want to identify as anger. I'm not angry. That's not okay. It's okay to feel angry, right? Just because you feel angry or anxious or sad doesn't mean that you are those things. Those are just passing states. They're not permanent traits. But when we keep telling ourselves like, "Oh, I'm freaking pissed off today," that's telling our subconscious like, "Oh, we're angry. That's what we are. That's who we are," right? So no, I'm not that. You want to look at your emotions almost from an outside perspective. So like a third, like almost like you're looking down on yourself. Like, oh, okay. I see I'm feeling some anger today. I wonder what that's about. You know, ooh, I noticed I'm feeling a little anxious, right? I'm feeling these. It's totally okay to feel these emotions, but we're not them. So when you start to practice mindfulness and awareness, you create this space between you and the emotion, right? Now you're separate from it. You're looking at it from an outside perspective. It's not part of you, right? So when you do this, it allows you to respond to the emotion instead of react to the emotion. Now, you at your core, who you are, you're calm, you're grounded, and you're whole. The emotions are simply signals moving through your system, not definitions of who you are. Uh, Nikki, go by mommy. Sorry, my 2-year-old just decided to pop in and say hello. So let's talk about processing and releasing emotions. So one of my favorite mindfulness techniques is the 5-4-3-2-1 technique. So this is when you use all of your senses to anchor yourself in the present moment. We're talking about emotions. Yeah. Sorry, guys. So 5-4-3-2-1. What does that do? I need to do it right now after my 2-year-old just interrupted my presentation. I look at 5 things around me, right? So I start naming 5 things that I could see, 4 things that I can touch, 3 things that I could hear, 2 things that I could smell, and 1 thing that I can taste. So what this does is it brings me back into the present moment, right? Because if we're depressed, we're thinking about something in the past. If we're anxious, we're thinking about something in the future. So this brings us back into that present moment where we could start to now observe these emotions and respond to them instead of reacting to them. If we don't bring ourselves into the present moment, we're in reaction mode. So that's why I love the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 so much, because you're incorporating all five of your senses. And when you do that, you have to be in the present moment if you're using all five of your senses. So now by doing that, I can start to respond to these emotions instead of reacting to them. So mindful meditation, sitting there in stillness and just observing these thoughts and emotions without any judgment. Like I said before, this is where you're kind of from an outside perspective, like, oh, okay, I'm feeling some stress, I'm feeling some anxiety. What's that about? You're bringing more awareness to yourself instead of trying to avoid that emotion. It's like, no, let's figure it out. Let's work through this. Why am I feeling this? You're bringing more awareness to your thoughts and the emotions. And this is what allows you to start to regulate it. A body scan meditation, another one to really bring you back into the present moment. So when you're doing a body scan, you just sit there, you close your eyes, you're doing some deep breathing, and you just begin to scan your whole entire body. So you check in with your toes, you work your way up through your feet, and you're just picturing yourself just scanning your body, your ankles, your calves, and you go all the way up through every part of your body and start to notice, is there any parts of my body where I'm feeling some tightness, where I'm feeling some tension? Is this linked to an emotion that I haven't processed yet? And then one of my favorite ways to bring emotional clarity is journaling. So some really good prompts to ask yourself, a really good time to do this is at night in the evening time, is what emotions am I feeling right now? What does this emotion want me to know? And then maybe you're feeling anger or anxiety. So when you're feeling emotions like this, a great prompt is, what's the story I'm telling myself right now? A lot of times when we're feeling angry, when we're feeling anxious, we're going into what I call mind reading. So you're in this assumptive loop. You're reading other people's minds, right? You're thinking, you're trying to think about what they're thinking, where it's not, so what's that story you're telling yourself about what these other people have said or done? You know, so this helps that to interrupt that emotional spiral. It helps to interrupt it if you're tending to shut down. Most people, especially men in sports, we're never taught to process emotions. Instead we were told stuff like, hey, you got to suck it up, or you got to get tough, don't be soft, don't cry, babies cry. So we were taught that these types of emotions are weakness. And if that's what you were taught, if that's what you learned, you're going to suppress those or avoid those. Or you might even beat yourself up for feeling them. So to break free from that is to learn to recognize and feel these emotions without any judgment, right? Shift from looking at these emotions as weaknesses and start seeing them as opportunities for growth. Because every time that you recognize your anger, you recognize your anxiety, and you emotionally regulate that in a positive way, you just experienced extreme growth, man. So I almost get excited when these emotions pop up if I handled it properly, because I'm like, oh, heck yeah, man. I recognized that. I didn't judge it, I didn't look at it as a weakness, and I worked through it in an effective way. Man, I'm growing. This is awesome. And we need to validate these emotions, right? These aren't, like we said, they're not weaknesses. So validate it. It's okay to feel that. You're human. Human beings feel all types of emotions. It doesn't make you any less of a person by feeling stress, by feeling anxiety, by feeling anger. That's a normal part of being human. So next, this is going to be huge. We're going to get into how to release these emotional blocks and reset your nervous system. So your nervous system controls your emotional responses. So when you're regulated, when you feel calm and you're focused, that I'm sorry, when your nervous system is regulated is when you feel calm and when you feel focused and when you feel present. And when you're dysregulated, that's when you're going to feel anxious or angry or shut down or be emotionally reactive without understanding why. Now, this might be one of the most important parts of the whole presentation right here, is understanding the stress responses. There's four types of stress responses. You might experience all of these, but typically you're going to experience one more than the others. So we have these built-in survival mechanisms that we inherited from our ancestors, right? Our ancestors, they had to be alert. They had to be in survival mode. I'm talking way back in the day where they were worried about saber-toothed tigers coming to kill them, or maybe other villagers coming to take their food or their women. And so they had to be on guard at all times. And what happened was we inherited this survival mechanism. And so as a result, when we're feeling stressed, when we're feeling anxious, when we're feeling angry, it's our brain thinking that there's this saber-toothed tiger in the room, or that someone's coming to steal our shit or our women, right? So it needs to go into this survival mode, this fight or flight mode, or it doesn't need to, it thinks it needs to. So it's trying to protect us. So the first stress response is fight. So if you typically respond to stress or anxiety with anger or aggression or controlling type behavior, maybe you snap at someone you love, it's not because they're causing the stress, right? It's because our nervous system is trying to dump this energy. It doesn't know how to process it, right? So sometimes it snaps on the people closest to us. And there's another component to that. Another reason why, different from the stress responses that were why we do it to the people that we love the most, is because we feel safest with them. We know that, even when we mess up, even when we're wrong, even when we snap at them, they're still going to love us, right? You know, that obviously doesn't make it okay, but that's why we do it. So when we respond with fight, when we respond with anger, it's because our nervous system is trying to dump this energy, but also because, we feel safe with these people that are closest to us. Sometimes we snap because our ego is in a battle right now. It's trying to win. It could see winning this argument as, winning this villager that's coming to attack us, right? So it's going to need to, that's your ego trying to say, no, we got to fight. We got to fight. We got to win this right now. We got to win, right? It's in that survival mode. The next response is flight. So if you tend to, when you're feeling anxious or stressed out, or overwhelmed, you might try to flight, escape. So you do that through overworking, avoiding the emotions, distracting yourself with, social media, TV, um, food, alcohol. Some people even distract themselves with exercising. Exercising is a great thing, right? But are we doing it to proactively feel good, or are we doing it to escape negative feelings, negative emotions, right? Now, it's still, look, that's still a good coping mechanism. It's not, but we need to be aware that why we're doing it and work through that. You can still go for the run, go for the lift after, because it's going to fire off all great endorphins and dopamine in your mind. That's fine. That's great. But if you're doing this to feel better because you're not feeling good, so it's not something to be proactive, you're doing it to escape, first you got to work through, why am I escaping? What am I escaping? What am I telling myself right now? What do I need to work through right now? The next response is freeze. So a lot of times when people just they feel stuck, like they don't understand why, they just have this feeling of feeling stuck. And they kind of tend to disassociate and shut down. Maybe they go into like a little bit of a mild depression, maybe a deep depression. But that's the freeze state, that's the freeze response. Um, and then we have fawn. So fawn is the people pleasing tendencies. You're trying to avoid conflict. So people pleasing or avoiding expressing your needs, that's not a personality trait. That's a trauma response, right? To this, whatever your emotions you're feeling. And it might have kept you safe at one point, but now later on in life, it's keeping you stuck. So recognizing your default pattern to stress will be able to help shift you out of survival mode and into emotional regulation. So chronic stress, that staying on high alert, if you don't process through that, that's what leads to burnout and anxiety and the dysregulation and all the issues physically, mentally, emotionally. So through mindfulness and breath work and grounding, it helps to bring you back to safety and feeling calm and let your brain know, like, hey, we're okay, right? It keeps you in the present moment and it helps you to endure challenges. So the more safety you can create within, the more confident and in control you'll feel. So I explained when we're experiencing those emotions and we're going into fight or flight mode, our nervous system is ramping up, right? It's like, oh shit, the tiger's in the room, man. Well, what do we? And so it's ramping up now. We gotta survive. So in order to reset that, because even after you tell your brain that no, we're safe, we're okay, it's still your nervous system is still ramped up. We gotta activate our parasympathetic nervous system, right? We need to regulate it. So one of the best ways to do that is by breathing with intention. There's a lot of things that we can't control in life, a lot of things outside of our control. One thing that we can always control is our breath. And there's a lot of power in that, right? So even in the Bible, they talk a lot about breath work, and there's even a scripture in Job that the the breath of the Almighty gives me life, right? So I even like to think of this from a spiritual standpoint that we're breathing in God's loving, abundant, healing energy when we breathe with intention. But regardless, there's a science behind this. So by taking these deep breaths, my favorite is the 4-7-8 breathing. So inhale for 4 seconds, hold it for 7 seconds, and exhale for at least 8 seconds. And what that does is it signals safety to your body and it shifts you out of that fight or flight mode. This is how you activate that parasympathetic nervous system, or what's known as rest and digest, right? Nervous system's ramped up, we're in fight or flight, regulated, calm, parasympathetic nervous system, we're in rest and digest. Grounding exercises. So, like we talked about, the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, the body scan, reconnecting to that present moment is going to help to alleviate this anxiety and promote that relaxation. One of my all-time favorite things, if you follow me on social media, you know I love it, is cold exposure, the cold plunge. Now, typically, when I'm talking about cold exposure, I'm talking about dopamine. I'm addicted to the dopamine hit that you get out of it. It jacks up your dopamine, that feel-good reward motivation chemical. But what it also does is it activates the vagus nerve. So the vagus nerve is the longest nerve in your body. And this nerve controls your body's relaxation response. So when you stimulate it, it lowers stress, it slows down your heart rate, and it brings your nervous system back into balance. So before I hop in the cold plunge, my heart rate could be at like 65. And then I'll see 10 minutes after being out of the cold plunge, 15 minutes after, it'll drop all the way down to the 40s. Like, so it drastically, so that says something. That's showing me, wow, something really powerful is going on in my body right now. And that's what it is. It's stimulating that vagus nerve to relax you. And then moving your body is another great way to reset your nervous system. So, walking, a lot of times you hear all these influencers saying 10,000 steps a day, 10,000 steps a day, right? Make sure you get your steps in. They don't really explain why. So, it's not about the exercise, right? You're not getting this crazy exercise by doing all these steps throughout the day, but it's because it keeps that energy moving, right? Stress is the biggest killer, right? So if we're constantly stressed out, we're going to develop all kinds of diseases. So that whole 10,000 steps a day thing, what that does is just it keeps it flowing, keeps that energy moving, releases that tension, regulates all that emotional energy. That's why the 10,000 steps a day is so powerful. But any type of stretching or yoga, all of that is awesome, just about keeping the body moving. So some techniques for releasing emotional blocks, the ones that are already blocked up. Maybe they've been there for a long time. Maybe they've been there your whole entire life. So again, journaling, asking yourself stuff like, what am I avoiding feeling right now? Right? Is there something that I'm avoiding feeling? What belief is holding me back? When you write this question down, you're talking to your subconscious. So it's going to bring it to the surface now. It's now going to bring it to the conscious. It's going to bring it forward so you can work through it and release that block. Inner child work. This is massive. So, you know, a lot of your current negative thoughts, your current limiting beliefs, your toxic behaviors, the way you manage and regulate your emotions, these are all a result of childhood. Now, I have a lot of clients that come to me like, Dave, I had a great childhood. I don't know what you mean. That I can't pinpoint anything. My parents were great. Here's the thing. Unless your parents were aware of all of this type of stuff, this psychology and neuroscience and about the subconscious, they made mistakes, right? They could have had the best intentions of the world. Even me, who does this for a living, I still make mistakes, and they will have impact on my children. That's just what it is. It's part of life. So what we need to do is, though, we need to recognize that, like, okay, my parents made some mistakes, or maybe it was teachers, or maybe you were bullied as a child, and we need to go and confront that, right? We can't run from that. So a powerful exercise to do this is writing a letter to those that caused you trauma, to those that caused pain, right? And again, when I say trauma, it didn't have to be like this giant traumatic experience, just, some wrong thoughts, right? Or they didn't manage their emotions right. Maybe they yelled at you. Like, it could be these little traumas that added up. We need to address those. So you write a letter to those that caused you trauma and you put them on trial, man. You say, like, how could you do this? This caused so much issues. This is how it made me feel as a kid. And this is what it caused as an adult, I dealt with these anger issues and this anxiety and this insecurity. And I was constantly comparing myself to other people. And I was constantly looking for this external validation. And it's all because of the shit that you said and the stuff that you did, and and the arguments that you had in front of me, and stuff that you would talk to me about that I shouldn't have been talked about. This caused so many issues. And as you're writing all this stuff down, memories are going to start to pop up, negative memories. And you got to write through those. You got to talk to these people about those memories. And then after you get it all out, after you get all the pain, and after you're done putting them on trial, and I mean put them on trial, right? Because you're not going to send this letter to them. So put them on trial. Get it all out. Talk about all the messed up shit that they said, how it made you feel as a child, what it led to as an adult. Get it all out there. And then you move to understanding. I understand why you did this stuff. I understand why you said this stuff. It's because you had your own unprocessed trauma. You never learned how to properly regulate your emotions. So I understand why you were the way you were, why you did what you did, why you said what you said. I understand that. And because I understand that, I forgive you. And you're forgiving them for you, not for them, right? Because none of that stuff that they did, like that's not an excuse for any of the stuff that they did. Just because you understand why they were the way they were and why they said what they said and did what they did, it doesn't make it okay. But because you can understand them, you don't have to take it personal, and you can forgive them. Because when you forgive them, once you forgive them, that's when you can let it go. Right? That's when you could finally let that trapped, poison, black energy go. And this is such a powerful exercise. You will be bawling, crying as you do it. But what is that? What is that bawling, crying? That's releasing. Your body is healing. It's letting go of all the suppressed emotions for the last 30, 40, 50, 60 years. So this is a very powerful and very necessary exercise, inner child work, writing a letter to those that have caused trauma, to those that have caused pain. One of my latest techniques that I've been doing is EFT, emotional freedom tapping. There's a few different ways to do this, but the one that I'm a big fan of is just slapping all parts of your body, anywhere you can on your body. Your ribs, your stomach, your face, rubbing your face really, really good, rubbing it all, your eyes. You ever feel like sometimes you just do a face rub? You don't even know why, but like you just rub your face. Subconsciously, your body's like, we need to release some energy. We need to release some stored up emotional energy that's pent up that for too long. So you'll just feel the need to like release it, right? So I like to do this proactively. I do it first thing in the morning, but throughout the day, if I'm feeling some stress, some tension, I'll just start slapping everywhere in my body. Keep that energy in motion, right? That's what we want to do. The next thing I want to get into is reframing your relationship with fear and stress. Because society has raised us to believe that fear and stress are enemies. They're not enemies, they're messengers, right? These are signals from our nervous system, right? When we're regulated, we're calm, we're good, we're focused. When our nervous system is off, it's like boop, boop, stress, fear, sending you a signal, right? That we need to address something. So it's alerting you of what I said before, growth opportunities, right? These aren't weaknesses. Fear is not a weakness, right? We grew up with the toxic phrase like fear no one, fear nothing, right? And it's like, no, that's not realistic. That's bullshit. Anybody that says they're not afraid of anything, they're a liar. And in fact, they're so afraid, they're afraid to even say they're afraid. They're afraid of what other people think that they're afraid, right? So no, fear, it's not a weakness. It's a signal of it. We have an opportunity to grow right now. And the same thing with stress. So if you felt anxious before a big presentation, before a big meeting, before a big competition. It's your body's way of preparing you to show up fully, right? I always tell athletes, it's okay to be a little nervous before you go out there. It means that you care. I talk to these people where they give presentations in front of thousands of people and they get nervous beforehand. I'm like, of course you're going to get nervous. You care. You want to do good, right? You want to get the sale. You want to show up for your company, whatever it is. You want to do good. It means you care. It's okay to be a little nervous. That's just a signal for your body. But it's also your body getting ready, uh, ready to present, to be at your best. George St. Pierre, one of the best UFC fighters of all time, he said there was one fight that he wasn't nervous before, and that's a fight he got knocked out. So he said that fear, that nervousness, he would get dialed in, tunnel vision. He could see the punches coming. He would operate just at a totally different level, and it's because of that fear, because of that anxiety, right? So again, don't look at these as bad things. These are good things. They're just signals for opportunities for growth. Feeling fear or stress, it doesn't mean that something's wrong. It also means that you're stepping outside your comfort zone. And remember, anything that you want in life will always be outside your comfort zone. Whether it's a goal, whether it's money, whether it's a new job, whether it's a new car, like something materialistic, it's always going to be outside your comfort zone. Starting a new job, starting a business, that's always going to require you to step outside your comfort zone. Success is always going to require you stepping outside your comfort zone. But what if it's just peace that you're looking for? Well, guess what? That's also going to involve you stepping outside your comfort zone, right? Maybe one of your stress responses was fawn, that people pleasing. Well, if you're going to feel nervous about setting a boundary with someone, again, that's an opportunity for growth because you're protecting your peace. You're sending a sign that you're honoring your self-worth, that you matter. So you need to set this boundary with someone. So that nervousness is just another signal for growth. So you have the power to respond, not just react. So by becoming more aware of your inner dialogue, you can shift from this is a threat, right? Because that's what the brain wants to think, to no, this isn't a threat, brain. There's no tiger in the room. There's no villager. This is just a challenge, a necessary challenge for my growth that I'm ready for. So, maybe you're the type that you spiral and freak out anytime you get some constructive criticism. Instead, control your inner dialogue, right? Pause, breathe, reframe that criticism as, oh no, this isn't an attack. This isn't something to take personal. This is another chance for me to grow. So how do you train emotional strength and resilience? Well, one is you got to feel to heal. So instead of avoiding these emotions, allow yourself to fully feel them, right? No numbing and escaping and avoiding the discomfort. Feel them. The more you feel them, the more you're going to build this emotional capacity, and it'll prevent that internal buildup of the negative energy and emotions. So when you start to feel sadness or anger arising, just kind of sit with it. Just sit with it. Breathe through it. Okay. Yeah, I'm feeling some sadness, and that's okay. I'm feeling some anger. Just sit there, breathe through it, sit with it. It's okay. You know, journal. What is it trying to teach you right now? What is this emotion trying to teach you? Now, you don't need to be emotionless to be emotionally strong. It's not that we don't feel emotional strength, resilience. It's not about not feeling these emotions, right? It's not about being zen. Feeling anger or anxiety, it doesn't mean that you're wrong. It means that you're human, right? We got to feel these emotions, right? Being zen is about, again, responding, not reacting. So using our tools like the breath work, like the journaling, pausing before speaking, training our nervous system to stay grounded under pressure in these tense moments. So before you're reacting, pause and ask yourself, is this my ego trying to protect me right now? Is this my ego trying to win right now? Right? So we want to embrace emotional challenges and start reframing setbacks, right? Setbacks are just setups. So look at emotional struggles as training grounds, right? They're not signs of failure. Each challenge helps you to grow stronger. Each challenge makes you wiser. A lot of people, they tell me like, oh, Dave, you're a real smart dude. Like, how did you get so smart? It's just life experience, right? It's just that I allowed these challenges to make me stronger because I stopped beating myself up over them for the last 30 years. I stopped suppressing them and I started just recognizing them and then understanding what they were about, not judging myself for feeling them. You get wiser by going through these things, right? These experiences, these moments. Instead of saying to yourself, when something negative is going on, when a failure happens, instead of thinking, no, why is this happening to me? No, start to think, how is this happening for me right now? It's always happening for you. Now, another thing to keep in mind is emotional volatility. So we want to keep ourselves grounded. We also don't want to get too high. We talk about not getting too low, but we also don't want to get too high. So, when things are going really, really well, celebrate them, reflect them, and then release them, just like you do with negative ones. We want to stay in that flow state. Just keep the energy flowing. So, are you winning? Hey, celebrate with gratitude. Reflect on, what did I do to get here? Okay, cool. Now I'm going to release and move on. Don't get too caught up on the highs. When you get real caught up and you get real, real high, that's when you experience real, real lows, right? So we want to stay grounded at all times. Now, if you did you lose? Did you fail? Okay, reflect. What was the lesson I learned? Right? Just stay grounded and keep moving forward. Let that energy flow. Stay in that flow state. Now, in order to have emotional mastery, we have to implement it into our daily routines and our everyday life. So, this is why it's so important to live your life with intention, right? Start and end your day with intention. I'm a big fan of Wim Hof breathwork in the morning and prayer and gratitude journaling. In the evening, work to those prompts that we were talking about earlier. What am I feeling right now? Is there anything that I need to let go of? Right? Start to process your emotions and reset your nervous system. There's something that I just started implementing 2 days ago is setting aside time to reflect throughout the day. Now, I don't know if you guys remember this way back in the day, the Tamagotchis. Like everybody had a Tamagotchi and everybody was like looking at it all day long and checking on it like, oh shit, I got to feed my Tamagotchi, right? I got to make it stronger, build it, whatever. They're constantly checking on it and would tell you different things that the Tamagotchi needed. Do that with yourself. So what I started doing, I started setting timers throughout the day just to check in. How am I feeling right now? Because I could get so distracted with work and kids and life and everything that uh, we need to take time to check in with yourself. Do you need to regulate real quick? Do you need to do 2 to 3 minutes of breath work or a 5, 4, 3, 2, 1? Bring yourself back into the present moment. Set a timer on your phone, just like that Tamagotchi would go off. It goes off and you're like, shit. Let me check in real quick. Let me take a walk outside. Just check in with myself. Well, what am I feeling? What are my thoughts? What's going on? Right? Powerful. Stacking habits. So combining movement with mindfulness and mindset work into your routine to train your brain and your body to handle the stress more effectively. So I talked about this on the last presentation, was pairing your workout with affirmations, or follow meditation with cold exposure, right? To strengthen your emotional resilience. So you have to have these routines in place if you want to be a master of your emotions. It's a non-negotiable. So action steps for emotional mastery. We talked about setting intentions. Set clear intentions helps you focus your emotional energy and align your actions with your goals. Create space before reacting, right? Try 3 deep breaths before responding to a triggering email or a triggering text. Right? How many times does a text message or an email come through and you're like, oh, motherfucker, and you want to like respond something? Man, I promise you, you respond right then and there in the moment, it's not going to be the most effective text or email that you will send. Wait. If you can wait 24 hours, wait 24 hours. If it's something that needs your attention, but you don't have to answer right away, wait. Go regulate yourself before you respond. Never respond out of emotion, right? If something triggered you, never respond right away. And even if it's in person, take a moment. Take a minute, just breathe. Ask yourself real quick before you answer, what am I feeling right now? Okay. Do I want to respond out of fight? Right? Am I responding with the tiger in the room? No. Let me breathe real quick. Like let me respond without emotion. To have emotional mastery, you need to practice self-compassion. This allows you to acknowledge your struggles. It allows you to be human and treat yourself with kindness. And then I like to have a go-to emotional toolkit. So we talked about a whole bunch of stuff, but have like 3 to 5 that are your go-tos to help regulate your emotions. So journaling, breath work, movement, whatever that is, just you need to have a go-to toolkit where it's almost like subconscious, like, oh, I'm feeling this, I need to go do this real quick. Like have your toolkit that is always on hand. Cool. So this is where I'll open it up to if you had any questions throughout it, if you have any emotions that you struggle with that you want to work through, if there's anything that I mentioned that you want some more clarity on, this is your chance to get some feedback, to get some perspective,